magic mirror on the wall, what is the best podcast of all? Welcome to the Heaven Podcast. I am the host, the Queen. Today, as the best host of the best podcast channel, I've gathered a few villains here in heaven, and together we are going to talk about how we, villains, are very important to literary works. Let's welcome our first guest, Professor Snape from Harry Potter. Anything you'd like to say to our listeners?
I just hope there aren't as big a bunch of thunderheads as I usually have to teach.
Indeed the villain you are. Then let's welcome our second guest from the Black Cat. How should I call you?
Just call him Drunky. He's always drunk ever since the first day I saw him.
Oh, right. I don't think I've ever seen you sober, right, Mr. Drunky?
Never mind.
Then let's call you Mr. Drunky. You want to introduce yourself to our audience?
Maybe ask him later. He looks too drunk to do anything.
Fine. Then I guess I start by introducing myself, as I'm sure there are some new audience who didn't know me yet. Though it's definitely their problem as I'm very famous. How come someone not know me and my role in Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs? So, once upon a time, in an isolated kingdom, there was the fairest woman, and people call her the Queen. It's me, don't even doubt.
You? The fairest woman?
But my beauty was threatened by a young maiden, Snow White. She grew more beautiful with each passing day, a reminder of my fading youth. I became more and more envious, so I ordered one servant to end her life. However, he betrayed me, sparing Snow White's life and allowing her to escape into the depths of the forest. My anger burned hotter than the flames of 1,000 suns. Afterwards, I was determined to rid myself of this rival, and I concocted a plan. Disguised as an old hag, I offered Snow White a poisoned apple, a tempting fruit she could not resist. Oh, the satisfaction was overflowing as I watched her succumb to cursed sleep.
So you disguise yourself? No wonder you look like this.
What do you mean by look like this?
Just go on with your amusing story.
Well, my victory was short-lived. Those pesky dwarfs, meddling in my affairs, rescued her from her slumber. They dared to stand against me, the fairest queen. They didn't know there were such powerless tiny people, since my power was so strong and my scheme was formidable.
Question.
What?
If you're so strong and formidable, how come I heard that Snow White survived?
Because after the prince kissed Snow White, my triumph turned into ashes. A kiss from true love can cure the sleeping death. At that moment, I realized my own downfall. It was not Snow White's beauty that defeated me, but the power of true love.
So, in conclusion, you failed.
Fine, you know what? If I'm ugly and such a failure to you, why don't you go on and introduce yourself? Tell people what evil, great things you did.
Sure, I can go first. I mean, look at him. So, the evil things I did, I'm a Death Eater, which means I work for you-know-who, the most evil and powerful wizard of all time. I believe you guys call him Voldemort, but us wizards, unlike you dumb muggles who don't know magic, don't call him by his name. Also, I killed Dumbledore, the great Hogwarts headmaster. Hogwarts is our magical school, by the way. I'm so sick of having to explain everything to you muggles. Anyways, I did all kinds of evil things and made Harry Potter hate me. At least in the first 6 books of the series.
But only in the first 6 books. At the end, people found out that you helped Harry Potter. How can you call yourself evil and call me a failure when you even helped the protagonist yourself?
Well, I had my reasons. Fine, let me tell you my story again from the very beginning, even before Harry Potter was born. So my story actually begins with a young girl I met when I was little. Her name was Lily Evans. She was special. Her family were muggles, but she was the same as me. We connected. I understood her and she accompanied me.
Looks like the power of true love not only defeated me, but also you.
But after we went to school, we grew apart. Our school, Hogwarts, divided students into different houses. She was in the house of Gryffindor. I was in Slytherin. My days at Hogwarts weren't pleasant. There was this arrogant guy, James Potter, who would attack me, but only when it was 4-on-1. Even worse, Lily fell in love with this Potter guy. She didn't like who I was hanging out with, though they were the only ones I had at that time. She was disappointed with me and Potter took her away. After I joined the Death Eaters, a group of people who work for you know who. It felt like a group of people together. Then, you know who? He killed Lily, who I love.
I see you're a little emotional now. I'll come back to you later. Now you, Mr. Drunky. Snape and I both introduced ourselves, so why don't you do the same too?
Why do I need to speak? I wrote everything down. Never mind. I suppose that you haven't read my writings that I wrote before my death yet. I'll summarize it for you then. I've always been fond of animals for my whole life, especially my beloved cat, Pluto. Remember, I was noted for my kind and humane disposition in my early years. However, just as what you have seen in heaven, as I suffered from alcoholism, my behavior turned violent. Once after I gouged out one of Pluto's eyes, overcome by guilt and fury, I hung Pluto from a tree. Later, I found a similar black cat with a white patch on its chest and took it home when I was drunk. I still regret now that I brought it home. That little creepy monster kept reminding me of my guilt. And I ended up manslaughtering my wife. It should be the black cat murdered it instead of my wife. And questions, I can really get the point. Why I'm here discussing villain characters. You should ask the black cat for the guess rather than me.
You don't think you're a villain?
No, I'm loving towards animals. It was the evil black cat. It should be here instead of me.
Wow, okay, cool. Now what should we do then? Now that we've all introduced our stories, I'm sure the audience would want to know more about what characteristic we hold. I was always curious about this. What do you guys think about me?
Bold,
Ruthless
crafty,
and cruel.
How come none of you mentioned beautiful? Fine, I shouldn't expect anything nice from you guys.
I said crafty is a nice thing.
Really? Then why do you think I'm crafty?
In the movie, I heard you tell Snow White that this is no ordinary apple. One bite and your dreams will come true. Very clever of you that you play with her desire. She wants her dream to come true and marry the prince.
Indeed, I'm glad you noticed that. When I went to the cottage of the dwarves, I pretended my heart was hurt, and thus entered the house. And I want Snow White to eat the poisonous apple, so I said that it was a special one and managed to tempt her to consume it. I did not lie to her though. The dream eventually came true. I mean, my dream. The dwarves would think that she is dead, and she would be buried alive.
If I may interrupt, that was quite ruthless. In fact, you were ruthless from the very start. Remember when you asked the mirror, magic mirror on the wall, who's the fairest one of all? And hoped the answer was you. But the mirror answered, behold, a lovely maid I see, lips red as a rose and skin white as snow. Furious and afraid of losing your beauty, you decided to send a faithful huntsman to end her life. Killing someone merely because of what a mirror says is quite ruthless.
She seemed very bold to do this. She wasn't just bold enough to send a servant. When betrayed, she resolved to visit Snow White herself. She said, I'll go myself to the dwarf's cottage in a disguise so complete. She brewed a potion to change into an old hag. Look at her now, the magic worked perfectly.
I hope that's a praise.
It sure is. I think you're absolutely bold.
I would rather call that cruel.
Snape, if you keep being mean, I won't speak well of you later.
There's no need for you to do so.
Oh, really? You know what? You're the most detached and unapproachable person ever. You never connected with your students and treated them like they were stupid.
But they are. Stupid. Arrogant.
Even in heaven, you didn't try to befriend us. As villains, we should bond and understand each other and say nice things.
We're saying nice things now. Sorry, I wasn't listening.
Yeah, we can see you drinking. Again.
Nice things. Snape is definitely smart. He teaches at a very famous school, and he invents spells and ways to make potions. Even Harry Potter used his formula and spells.
He dared to use my own spells against me.
Our Snape is also brave. Over all the year, he played his part very well, so that he can help Harry Potter. But our Snape can be a little oppressive sometimes. I remember reading the last book of Harry Potter and seeing our Snape said, "Has it ever crossed your brilliant mind that I don't want to do this anymore?" I almost cried thinking about how our Snape never said what he wants. And he loved Lily and was protecting Harry Potter. But he never showed any affection. Oh, our dear Snape, don't oppress yourself so much. If you need someone to talk to, come to me. I can drink with you.
Thank you. But I'd rather talk to someone more sober and less arrogant. I hate arrogant people, like the Potters.
You think I'm arrogant?
I was just scrolling through your work. You wrote, secure, however, in the inscrutability of my place of concealment. I felt no embarrassment whatever, and the glee at my heart was too strong to be restrained. I burned to say if but one word, by way of triumph, and to render doubly sure their assurance of my guiltiness.
That's not arrogant. That's merely because I'm satisfied with my hard work. Queen, do you also consider me an arrogant person?
Well, maybe not arrogant, but definitely cruel.
Cruel?
Just look at your own words. I grew day by day more moody, more irritable, more regardless of the feelings of others. I suffered myself by using intemperate language to my wife. I experienced a sentiment half of horror, half of remorse for the crime of which I had been guilty. But it was, at best, a feeble and equivocal feeling, and the soul remained untouched. Only a cruel person would say something like this.
But I'm a good person. The cruel, evil one is the cat. Don't you think I have a lot of great personal traits before I drink alcohol? I'm loving and caring and...
How should we be able to know what you are like before you drink? We have never seen you before you drink.
Let's at least come up with one positive personal traits for him, or else I'm a little afraid of him. He is so drunk.
Fine. You are... you have great perverseness. Look, here you wrote. It was this unfathomable longing of the soul to vex itself, to offer violence to its own nature, to do wrong for the wrong's sake only. Hung it because I knew that it had loved me, and because I felt it had given me no reason of offense. Hung it because I knew that in so doing, I was committing a sin.
Hey, Snap. Perverseness isn't good.
Then I don't know what to say about you.
Hey, let's talk about something lighter. What do we have in common? Let's talk about our rivals then. I believe you all have someone you hate, right? That's why we became villains. Like for me, I hated Snow White. Snow White is not the innocent girl everyone believes her to be, but rather a cunning manipulator who uses her beauty and charm to acquire sympathy and support. I just can't accept it.
Well, I guess for most of the series, people thought I was Harry Potter's rival, so I will talk about him then. Potter, Lily's son, survived. You know who wanted to kill him, but I saved his life. Obviously, I did it for Lily, not for him. He grew up extraordinarily like his father, exceedingly arrogant and famous. Nevertheless, fame clearly isn't everything. He's neither special nor important, but he has Lily's eyes, and that was enough for me.
Oh, well, Snape is so heartwarming, just like me in my story.
How is your story heartwarming at all? You are cruel.
Don't you understand that I am the victim? I am the victim of the black cat. If it had not appeared, I would not have killed my wife, and also not been sentenced to death. I know that my dislike and hatred of it came from my inner guilt. However, its affection for me brings me terror and horror every time I notice that the little monster wanted to stick with me. I feel like it did it on purpose to make me remember my deeds of cruelty. And the white patch on it, as I mentioned previously, is definitely a gallows that brings me to death. I suppose that the bees played some tricks on me to make me suffer and force me to reveal my sin.
Dear Queen, you definitely didn't invite the right person here today. This person doesn't think himself a villain. How can we get into the topic of proving villains are very important to literary works?
He still still a little drunk. Let's just begin to discuss the topic without him then. Now that our audience already know us thoroughly, they know our respective stories, our rivals, our personalities, we can finally start telling them how important we are. Do you think you contributed a lot to the Harry Potter series?
Of course, I made a lot of contributions.
Same here. Snow White wouldn't be famous without me. It is me who makes her popular. In fact, the reason that Snow White is so world-renowned is owing to what I did to her.
That's not enough. I brought more literary value to Harry Potter than you brought to Snow White.
How dare you? I say I'm the most important villain. I was able to draw a contrast between Snow White and me, which is between a kind-hearted personality and villainous character. When Snow White is taken in by the seven dwarfs, she took good care of them, providing scrumptious food, necessary hygiene, and the precious companionship. What's more, when she sees some animals, she is not afraid of them. Instead, she gets close to them and they become good friends. On the contrary, when I heard the mirrors say that there were one maiden who is more beautiful than me, I immediately ordered my faithful huntsman to enter her life. The contrast of our dissimilar personality made Snow White famous for her humane traits. Furthermore, do you remember I disguised as an old, short, hideous hag because I would like to win her compassion? That is an intriguing scheme since I sacrificed my own beauty to accomplish my work. However, this scene also juxtaposes our physical appearance. In the scene, Snow White is white-skinned, slim-handed, and looks gorgeous, but I am small, unattractive, and malevolent. It is also a metaphor of my inner ugliness, which reflects on my physical appearance. This sarcastic difference indeed demonstrates Snow White's kindness and beauty, and thus making her famous, making me the most contributed villain.
Well. Thank you for that long speech, which is useless by the way, as you were wrong from the very beginning. You obviously didn't contribute as much to Snow White as I did to the Harry Potter series. I made so many people fall in love with the Harry Potter series by reading my story. Did you see how the general public loved me after the last book of Harry Potter was published? My line always was everywhere. People cried for me, wrote fanfiction for me. I made the stories famous.
But you just said fame clearly isn't everything.
Well, it isn't. But I also brought so much literary value to the Harry Potter series. First, I created new themes and moral lessons. When I, one of the most villainous characters of the first 6 books, turned out to be a good person at the very end, it makes readers reconsider good and evil or right and wrong. My contribution to Harry's success also makes readers rethink Harry's journey and realize a hero needs a team. Secondly, my character brought more complexity and wholeness to all characters and the plot. If one villain has a complete backstory and motive to do bad things, the readers would reconsider all villains in the work. It also allows readers to go back and look for hints and details and realize how well plotted the work is. There were a lot of clues in the first 6 books that actually showed me helping Harry Potter, but the author used them as red herrings and made the readers think I am terrible. Lastly, I elevated the layers of emotions the readers might have when reading the ending of Harry Potter. If the story was simply good guys winning over bad guys, like your story, my queen, the readers would just feel happy. But I played with the line between good and bad, thus arousing the feeling of sympathy in readers. You know, the best tragedy is when no one is purely bad but conflict still happens. I also created catharsis for the readers when Harry knew about my hard work and thought of me as the bravest person at the end. All in all, unlike you who can only work as a contrast to Snow White, I created great themes, moral lessons, red herrings, complexity and wholeness, and so much more. I obviously contributed more to the Harry Potter series than you did with the Snow White movie.
But how can you say you contributed as a villain when you're actually helping Harry Potter? You even helped him destroy Voldemort. See, you shouldn't be here today. You're just like me, we're not villains. Queen, why did you invite us in the first place?
Oh, you're still listening. Well, as for you, it's a little hard to explain to you, but for Snape, he certainly did some vicious things. He killed the most important leader of Harry Potter's team, joined the Death Eaters, and even though his motive for doing these things were explained at the end, he still has a lot of characteristics which people usually associate with villains. Like being indifferent, always wearing black, being cold, strict, and risking out to achieve what he cares about.
You call that a villain? You know, I didn't even think that I'm a villain when I first came here today. But hearing you arguing who is the greatest villain, while both of you did was so childish and not vicious at all, I suddenly feel like I could win this greatest villain title if I argue against you guys. I'll say that there is the soul, the spirit of perversity, another me, displays the villain role instead of me. The spirit which is addicted to alcohol, coexisting with me, did all the murdering and violence. I assert that the spirit of perversity contributes the most to the writing's profound exploration of human nature and guilt. After my descent into alcoholism, the spirit of perversity overtakes me, leading to acts of brutal violence. The shift between my original personality and the perverse one showcases how alcohol erodes my humanity. My soul is replaced with the demon of malevolence. You might see the duality of man, the battle between my former self and a fiendish alter ego born of addiction. The psychological conflict, including his good as well as my remorse, and eventual downfall, make my contribution indispensable, as it provides an insight into the darkness that can reside within us all. Also, the writing is not merely about his villainous acts, but in a harrowing exploration of man's fall from grace. Thus, not me, but another soul within me is definitely the best villain.
No, I am the greatest villain.
Obviously, I'm better than you two.
Did you guys not hear what I say? Are you deaf or drunk?
You are drunk and I am the greatest villain.
Arrogant.
I might be drunk, but I'm right. I'm the greatest.
Wait, I know who to ask. Magic Merrill on the wall, who is the greatest villain of all?
My dear Queen, no more murder in heaven. All of you are indeed the best villains since you all bring out the significance and attractiveness of the protagonist in your story respectively. Your existence absolutely adds a few more layers to the richness of conflicts and characters in your work. My queen, the kindness and beauty of Snow White stand out through your evil. Professor Snape, as you have mentioned previously, there is a must for your appearance in Harry Potter. The audience could once think about the story between you and Harry Potter instead of merely defining you as a villain. Lastly, Mr. Drunky, pardon me for calling you Drunky, I know everything except for your name. The story develops merely based on your pure viciousness. Your evil has reached a certain degree that provokes the whole conflict. In fact, all of you showcase how the villain characters function in their own work. So there is no need for choosing one villain character to be the best villain. You all are the best.
Merrill, how on earth would you come to this conclusion? I'll end the episode here, for I'm going to make more apples. As usual, my dear listeners of the Heaven Podcast, this is the Queen and today's guest, Professor Snape and Mr. Drunky from the Black Cat. Thank you for listening.